Sometimes, life can feel like one big project, constantly trying to put the pieces together. What if I told you it's okay to be a mess? Life is a journey, and we must transform ourselves into who we want to become. We start by knowing who we are and with the relentless pursuit of our passion and purpose. How did I do it? With a lot of help from my friends. And we'll talk about all of that right here on The Beautiful Butterfly Project.
The great Maya Angelou said, "Courage is the most important of all virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently." In addition, a strong woman knows she has strength enough for the journey, but a woman of strength knows it is in the journey where she will become strong. Today, on the Beautiful Butterfly Project, we welcome Clarinda Jones-Turner. Clarinda is the Executive Director of the Greater Peace Community Development Corporation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the quality of life for low-income, middle-income families. The organization provides affordable housing, childcare, educational programs, mentorship programs, and a variety of other resources needed to assist families in East Alabama and West Georgia. Prior to that position, Ms. Jones-Turner served as Training and Organizational Development Manager for the City of Auburn, Alabama, where she developed, performed, and coordinated employee trainings. Through her collaborations with the city manager, mayor, and department heads and the city employees, she provided training specifically designed to improve employee performance, enhance knowledge, and create developmental opportunities. Ms. Jones-Turner has also been an educator with the Opelika City School System in Alabama for over 13 years. And during her tenure, she developed an entrepreneurship program in which one of her students was offered $30 million by a corporation for a business they started in her class. Clarinda is a graduate of Alabama State University, where she received her bachelor's degree in business marketing education. In her spare time, she enjoys spending time with her family and friends. She is married and is the mother of 2 sons, 2 bonus sons, and 1 bonus daughter. The Beautiful Butterfly Project is honored to welcome Clarinda Jones-Turner to the show. The Beautiful Butterfly Project welcomes Clarinda Turner to the show. How are you today, Clarinda?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. This is super exciting.
You know what? I am super excited too, because to be completely transparent, I read that wonderful bio of yours, to the group that I have dubbed the Butterfly Nation, to give them a little insight into who you are. But to be completely transparent, you are my sister-in-law.
I am.
Longtime friend and longtime, family member, but you officially became a member of the family last year, and so I'm excited to have you here. So after reading your bio, and it's extensive, I was impressed. I'm like, yes, girl, yes, hey. But could you give the Butterfly Nation a little bit more insight into who you are?
Absolutely. So I am Clarinda Jones-Turner. I am originally from Fall River, Massachusetts. Grew up in Auburn, Alabama. So I have a southern twang. Was raised down in the South. But professionally, I was an educator for 17 years. I still consider myself an educator. I just work outside of the classroom. I think I contribute to the betterment of students in a different way, in a way that I can kind of control better than a classroom setting would allow me to do. I left education in 2020 and decided to try something new, and so I went and worked for the City of Auburn in local government. I worked in their HR department as the city's training and organizational development manager. So I was still teaching. I was just teaching adults instead of students, younger students, middle school students. And learned a lot there. And so it was a really wonderful experience. And then I had the opportunity to come and work for the Greater Peace Community Development Corporation, which is a 501c nonprofit located here in Opelika, Alabama. It was actually started by my dad in 2000, and I've worked for them on a part-time basis since 2008. And so now I oversee, we have a lot going on. We have a housing development for affordable housing for low income, moderate income families. We have a child development center with 2 first-class pre-K programs. We have an after-school program. We have a summer educational enrichment program, and lots of other programs in between. And so I oversee all of that and the staff, and I'm getting to meet a lot of people in the community, and I'm excited about some of the projects that we have coming up.
Well, it seems like you are, even at your tender age of, I know what it is, but I'm not going to ask you to reveal
I'm
that.
48. I'm proud of
48,
it.
girl, I just turned 50, so we're not too far apart. But it just seems like you have been a lifelong educator, and education and sharing knowledge is one of your passions, which is one of mine too, because one of the quotes that I have is that the best thing that we have to offer to all those we encounter is the gift of knowledge. And that seems like something that you really, really enjoy doing.
I do. I do. And I have a passion for underprivileged, underserved communities, kids in those communities. And so even when I taught in the middle school, the kids that were kind of labeled as problem children were the ones that I think I loved the most, because they wanted to learn, they wanted to be exposed to new things, but it was just all about your delivery. And so I figured out ways to reach them at their level, and reach them in a way that they could understand. And so, yeah, teaching and learning are passions of mine.
And that's so interesting because I know a little bit about your background. So, could you please tell the Butterfly Nation about where you grew up and just some of your experiences growing up?
Okay. So I stated I was born in Massachusetts, Fall River, Massachusetts, and I was actually born to a Cape Verdean mother. And I thought until I was 47 years old that my biological father was African American. But I found out at the young age of 47 that my biological father is Portuguese. And so, for those who don't know a lot about the Cape Verdean culture, it's a mix, so to speak, of Portuguese and African. It's where the Cape Verde is an island, or a set of islands, where the Portuguese conducted their slave trade. And so after many, many decades and centuries of, for lack of a better word, entanglements, this very rare and unique race was born, which is Cape Verdean. So you can find a Cape Verdean who is very light-skinned and displays European features, and then you can find darker-skinned, blue-eyed, blonde hair Cape Verdean. So we're very diverse. And so I was born there to a Cape Verdean mother, and after 4 months of life, she decided to give me up. She left me with a friend and never came back to get me. And so I was adopted by an African American family, so I looked nothing like them. And they were from the South. My mom is from Memphis, Tennessee. My dad is from Laurel, Mississippi. And he grew up in a big family. He had 13 boys, 13 brothers, and 3 sisters. And so they adopted me while they were living in Massachusetts. My dad worked for the USDA. My mom was an educator. She taught math and English. And so I grew up there the first 8 years of my life. And so there were people up there who looked like me.
Wow.
And so I felt like I fit in quite well. And then we moved to Alabama. And
Good old
yeah,
Alabama.
in the early 80s, there weren't a lot of biracial people. There weren't a lot of people who looked like me. And so I really, I struggled. I struggled with identity, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But I'm an open book. So we moved to Alabama. I didn't. Everybody was staring at me and looking at me, and even if they weren't, I felt like they were. And so, add to that the fact that I look different. My mom is an educator. My dad is educated, and he became a prominent member of our community. So I had a lot of stress growing up. I had a lot of pressure growing up. I couldn't do certain things. I couldn't say certain things, all while I was trying to figure out who I was, and where I belonged and where I fit into this world. So that's just kind of a little bit about my background. I can go further if
You
you want me
know,
to.
good old Alabama, because I'm from Alabama. I'm from small town Alabama, a town called Bruton. A little over 5,000 people. I found out the other day that the population has shrunk. So that's a story within itself. And I identified with something that you said about you not quite feeling like you fit in. Because even though, I was born into an African American family, my parents got divorced when I was really, really young. It's just even growing up in that small town, I just felt like I was very confined because I didn't sound like everyone else. I didn't, pronounce words or speak like everyone else. And so it was a time where you struggle with your identity. And so not feeling like you belonged, Clarinda. And do you have any one moment in your life that you feel that was a self-defining moment that helped you move from a place of feeling of not belonging to a place of where you started to discover a little bit about who you are?
Yes, but it took me a long time to get there and find that place where I was happy with who I was and okay with that. I I rebelled a lot growing up. You know, my dad was a pastor, and he's one of those. He's not like those pastors that they preach one thing but live another way. My dad truly lives the way that he preaches. He he's he's a by the Bible book type of guy, and
Yes,
so
he
that was
is.
also difficult because that was an extra level of pressure for me. So I would have to say, growing up when we first moved to Auburn, I would lie. I would lie to people and I would tell people, mind you, I was in the fifth grade. I would tell people that both my parents died. And so that's why I was adopted because I needed to explain, or I felt like I needed to explain at, 10, 11 years old, why I didn't look like my family. And I ran with that lie for a really long time. And then I guess I was probably high school, early college. And I was like, like the truth is the truth. I was abandoned at birth, And so I kind of started to be honest about that. And then I started to find myself in my early 20s being honest with the fact that I had some issues that I needed to deal with. Who am I? My parents did a wonderful job raising me. I got to travel. I never wanted for anything. We never struggled. We lived a good life. And they did the best they could to raise a child who looked like me. And also, they thought my biological father was African American. So they weren't trying to make sure that I understood the Cape Verdean culture, let alone the Portuguese culture, because we didn't even know that that was part of my DNA until recently. So, when I was in my early mid 20s, I started to do a little research myself. Found out that Emeril Lagasse, who is a world renowned chef, was from he's from Fall River. So then I started to say, ooh, maybe I'm related to Emerald. I'm not, but I looked into that, and I was like, I like to cook, and so I found out that we were not related. But I started the process of trying to find my biological family. And I think when I realized that it was okay that I was different, it was okay to want to learn about my heritage and my culture, that I kind of started to settle into who I was as a person. But it took me a really long time to figure that out. It took me hanging around with some really tough crowds, like really tough crowds. And thank God I had parents who loved me, supported me. They were patient with me. They understood. They prayed for me on a continuous basis because some of those characters I was hanging with in my teens probably could have, my life could have ended up a lot different. And so, yeah, I was in my early 20s when I started to research And my mom actually gave me a box that I had no idea she had. And it was this little silver box, and it contained just some basic information about my birth family. Massachusetts will not open birth records for anybody. Like, you can be on your deathbed, they're just not going to do it. So the information that she gave me my biological mother's first name. It gave me my brother's name. It gave me the hospital that I was born in. And just that little bit of information started to make me feel whole. Like, I didn't realize I had this void. I mean, I was young. Like, how do you explain that you're different and that there's a part of your life that's missing and that you need so that you can become whole? Because I have traits and I have characteristics that are like my biological family, but I didn't know what those were. And then I also have traits and characteristics that are like my parents, because that's how I was raised. And so as that process kind of took place, I started to learn more about who I was and where I came from. And so I was okay with that information for a little while. And then when I got in my 40s, I was like, I need more. I want more. And so I was able to dig a little bit deeper.
Wow, wow, that is so amazing. So amazing. Clarinda, thank you so much for sharing that about, your birth parents and talking about your time growing up in Massachusetts and how your parents really gave you a sense of identity, and how you shared that you have traits of your parents and then traits of your birth parents, but you really didn't exactly know. And we all know that, our experiences shape us, especially our traumatic experiences, and that shapes our identity for the better or for the worse. So, do you have any experience that you would like to, talk about that helped shape your identity?
I have a lot, but probably the one that stands out the most was, I said earlier, I was very rebellious. And that was because I had a lot of issues that I didn't know how to deal with. Um, and growing up in a Baptist family, you know, and a pastor as a father, they don't really believe in therapy.
Mm.
Prayer is supposed to answer all your questions, and
Girl,
prayer
that's a whole
works.
show by itself, girl.
Prayer works.
Mm.
However, God also made doctors and therapists.
Yes,
So,
he did.
so before I, started therapy in my 40s, I rebelled, and so I would tell my mom I was going one place and end up somewhere I shouldn't have been. And so, yeah, when I was 16, I told my mom I was a candy striper. And I told her I was going to the hospital to volunteer that day, and I went with a friend to see her boyfriend. And he had a friend there, and we kind of talked on the phone a couple of times, but nothing serious. And my friend went to the back with her boyfriend, and they were doing whatever they were doing back there. And I guess his friend thought I was there for the same reason, and I wasn't. I was a virgin. Had sex was not on my mind, and so he decided no was not going to be the answer that he took that day. And yeah, I was brutally raped to the point. Well, I won't get graphic, but
Right.
it was pretty brutal. And I left my friend there, and I went to a gas station and I cleaned up. I drive by that gas station a lot, and every time I drive by it, I'm like, that's the one. I never went back in there after that day. And I never told anybody because I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. I lied to my mom. Like, how am I going to tell her this? So
Mm-hmm.
I kept that secret. I think I might have told like one of my best friends or something years down the road. And I told my parents when I was like 38 or 39, like, this happened to me. But it shaped me because it also caused me to not trust men for a
Mm-hmm.
while. Um, it caused me to feel like I deserved it, and I didn't. And so I finally had to learn that it was not my fault. And I started to kind of learn how to stand up for myself a little bit more.
Wow. Um, First of all, I want to say thank you for your courage and your bravery and sharing that and speaking that out loud, because we do hold those moments that are painful to us within ourselves for such a long time, and we don't share that with others for fear of being judged. And the Beautiful Butterfly Project is all about using our voice and our stories to give others the courage to share their own. And so, what you just did, that's going to free and help a lot of people. So, gratitude for you sharing that. And one of the things that I want to expand on is that how we have moments like that. And because of our upbringing and because of our environment, you said something about how, with like within the Black or African and American community, that is always, girl, just pray about it. And that doesn't solve everything, because we can utter our prayers and our prayers are heard, but sometimes we need another human being. So how important was that to you, to have at least one other person to share that with?
So, are you talking in regards to the therapy when I
And
finally saw therapy,
yeah,
or
and
just yeah?
in regard to the therapy,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
actually, I guess the first time I really just went into detail was with a therapist, and that's the person who encouraged me to tell my parents. And at that point, it was probably
right,
25 years prior, but just the fact that I was able to tell them what happened, it was freeing, and being able to just, even the graphic part with the therapist, I was able to talk to her about, because she's heard a lot of things, and so what I was telling her wasn't shocking, but she also gave me some methods to use so that I could deal with that and heal from that. And I do believe in prayer. I will say that again, but I also believe God uses other people to tell you what He wants you to know. And so sometimes
right,
I have trouble, like, is that you, God, or is that my imagination, or is that,
right,
is that you? And so having her say that, it was just it was clarity for me that it wasn't my fault, and
right,
and I needed to tell the people who meant the most to me, which are my parents, what happened. And I eventually told my sons, because I didn't want them to ever do that to anyone.
right, right. And that's so, so important in being able to speak our experiences out loud, because that does shape us into who we are. Painful moments, traumatic moments shape us into the individual that we are becoming. And having said that, because you have been an educator, because you have shared your heart's mission of working with children who are underserved and who are underprivileged, because I come from an underserved and underprivileged background, and too have suffered very traumatic experiences. And so I want to ask, going through that experience and finding your voice in your 40s, because sometimes it takes us a while to find our voice, is that when you really started discovering what your passion was, or did it start before your 40s or any other moment during your life? Because purpose is a journey. So, what set you on your path to finding out what your true purpose was?
I think it was honestly before,
Okay.
when I was
Yeah.
really young. The way I was brought up. My dad believes in service. He believes in giving back to the community, and my mom was an educator. She taught math and English, and so I think at a young age, I saw them do what they did, and they both loved it. And then when I got to be a teenager, I started to babysit. And then I taught a Sunday school class when I was about 16 or 17. I taught the 4 and 5 year olds, and I loved that. And and then I went off to college, and I thought I wanted to be a meteorologist. I was like,
What?
I want to do the weather, yes. And then I realized, now I went to college in Huntsville, Alabama, and they have a lot of tornadoes up there.
Yeah.
And so I realized that weather, I was not going to stand out in inclement weather and give a report. It wasn't worth it to me. So I was like, what do I need to do? What do I do? And so I enrolled in the College of Ed, and I knew I liked kids. I knew I liked to be around kids. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club when I was in college. So those things kind of helped shape me. And I think the older I got, the more experience I got working with kids, the more I realized that was my passion. And then actually after graduating and when I started teaching, I realized that my heart, I love all the kids, I love teaching everybody, but I had a special place in my heart for those kids who were labeled. And I think that's when I really found my passion, was when I actually started teaching, and seeing that these kids were not always getting a second chance, sometimes
Right.
not even a first chance, because
Yeah.
if you're labeled from one school and you go to another, and
Yeah.
people talk, and so
Yes,
I
they
felt like they
do.
didn't have a chance, and so I that kind of became my thing. And before I left, I was honestly getting the majority of the kids who came from back from the alternative school who'd been suspended.
Mm-hmm.
They were putting them in my class. Teachers wouldn't want to deal with them, and I treated them like they were my kids. I was like, boy, if you don't go sit down somewhere, like, we gonna have a problem.
We'll have a
And I would talk
conversation.
to them
Yeah.
like they were my kids, right?
Right.
But I also gave them lotion or crackers, or slid them some deodorant, and so they,
Right.
I think they realized that I came from a place of love and a place of caring, and so they respected me. And that's another reason I left, because I felt like I was still very limited to what I could do. African
Yeah.
American history is very important to me.
Right.
They don't teach it in the schools, not the way it should be taught. And
Mm.
so, even when I was teaching, I found ways to incorporate African American history into my classroom, and I got in trouble for it.
Yeah.
I still did it. I was like,
Yeah.
if you're going to fire me because I'm teaching African American history, so be
Right.
it. But
Yeah.
I can do those things through the nonprofit.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And that's just one thing that is it it's just so interesting about you, because you just had such a varied journey to how you've come to do the work that you do now. And based upon your experience in growing up in Massachusetts, because you talked about African American history, now, was that a highlight when you were growing up and going to school in Massachusetts versus when you were going to school in Alabama? And is that the thing that compels you to teach and to share your gift and to operate in your purpose?
I don't remember learning one thing about African American history when I was in school in Massachusetts. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't learn a lot in school in Alabama either.
Right, yeah.
It was because of my parents. It was because my parents made sure that my brother and I were involved in a lot of different organizations
Mm-hmm.
and extracurricular activities. So one of them was the African American Club that I was able to join. One was I was in Delteens, which was sponsored at
Yeah.
that time by Delta Sigma Theta, and so Barbara Pitts,
Mm-hmm.
was our advisor, and she made sure we learned our history. And not only that, we got to experience it. So she was really good friends with Rose Sanders,
Mm-hmm.
and Hank Sanders, and so and Rose has changed her name, and she's changed it to it. She has an African name now. I just don't know what it is, but we would go to her 21st century leadership camps in Selma, and so that just started to pour all of that pride in African American, from African American history into me. And so, yeah, that's huge. I graduated from an HBCU. I am a huge HBCU advocate. Nothing against PWIs, but
Right.
and I think part of that also comes from the fact that I look the way that I do,
Mm-hmm.
and that I am who I am. And so I have African blood in me. Cape Verdeans are part African.
Right.
And so I think growing up, I wanted to prove my blackness, so to speak. And so the
Mm-hmm.
more I learned, the better I felt, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. The more I learned, the better I felt. That is a beautiful thing. And I can't tell you how beautiful that is, because you get up, I know you personally, you get up every day and you show up at your best, and you show your students and the people that you work with that you are committed to the work that you do. So, all of us have this mantra or this affirmation that we repeat to ourselves every day. And if you remember watching Being Mary Jane, and she was a bit neurotic to me, but I love the show, and that she showed up each and every day at her fullest. She showed her full self, the good, the bad, the ugly, or even the indifferent, and posting her post it notes all over her bathroom and all over her kitchen. Do you have an affirmation or a mantra that you repeat to yourself, or let's say a quote or something that you live by?
I have a few. I think the one that, if I had to just pick one, it would probably be learn from your mistakes and understand that it's okay not to be perfect. Keep trying, trust God, and know that it gets better.
Mm.
Because even in this position here as the executive director, people try me and they test my gangster. But I can't handle things like I did back in my teens and 20s, and so
Right.
and I fail. Sometimes I come up with this program that I think is great, and then it's a failure, but it's a learning experience. And so I have learned that failure is okay. It's not fatal. It's not forever. Success isn't forever either. You have to keep working at it. And so, but once you learn to learn from your mistakes and not take them as a forever defeat, use it as a stepping stone, I think that
Yeah.
started to help me not take things personally and not let failure stop me from moving forward.
I'm trying to tell you because I like what you said about sometimes we do fail, but it's not fatal. Because sometimes we do need to fail because that may not have been the thing for us. And if we had not have failed, then we would have continued down a path that wasn't exactly
Yes.
marked for us to go. So,
So true.
Clarinda, tell us, who is your greatest influence?
My parents are. I love them both. They both taught me a lot. But if I had to just pick one, I would have to say it's my dad. He is the most giving person. He's the most patient person. I think I've seen my dad get mad in the 48 years that I've been around twice. Twice. He has almost mastered the ability to not let people get under his skin, and I think that is a superpower. He doesn't take things personally. He can have a disagreement with someone and love them and hug them and help them out, 5 minutes later. So I've learned a lot from him. I've learned about a lot about business from him now that I'm in this position. The importance of building relationships, just listening to people. I was raised to never think I was better than anybody else, but to see him have a conversation with an ex-con with just as much respect as he does with a judge is it's inspiring. And so I inspire to be more and more like him every day.
You know, he is one of the greatest individuals that I know, and he married me and my husband almost 27 years ago. And I can say every time I see him and every time I have a conversation with him, he is still the same. And he has a very savvy business acumen and a lot of knowledge. And he and I concur. If he was my daddy, I'd be like, that's my greatest influence too, because he is pretty amazing. And so, talking about your work and his influence on the work that you do, you are an executive director of a nonprofit. So, will you tell the Butterfly Nation a little bit about some of the work that you do?
Absolutely. This is my passion. So,
Ah,
yes, we are the Greater Peace Community Development Corporation, started in 2000 by my dad. And the premise was to start an organization that really helped the people the way that they felt that they needed help. And so they surveyed our community here in Opelika, and we're located in a low income community part of Opelika. And so they said education, affordable housing, and affordable childcare were their three biggest needs. And so the nonprofit, we call us the Greater Peace CDC. It's a long name, so we've shortened it. But we built 48 houses and it's in a subdivision or community called Jordan's Gates. We partnered with the Bennett Group, and the residents have the opportunity to rent for 15 years, and then if they want to purchase their home after those 15 years, they can. Their rent payments were low. Some of them were paying as low as $385 a month when they started out for a three-bedroom home with granite countertops, and it slowly would increase. But what we did was took part of their rent and we put it into an account so that when they got ready to buy, they would have a nice chunk of change to put down. And so we actually will come up to the 15th year in December. And so some
Whoa.
of those, yeah, some of those residents would want to purchase, and some of them like to rent. So we'll figure that piece out a little bit later. But yes, they do have the option to buy. It's a beautiful community. Just they take so much pride in it. They have a community garden. They have a workout room, a pool house. So they get to rent that out for parties and things. So anyway, it's really, really nice. And then we also have the Greater Peace Child Development Center. And that's been around for about 20 years. Right now, we have two first-class pre-K
Girl, I used to work
programs
there.
that are, yeah, you did. You did. I think it was just the daycare at that time, but they now have, it's a
I did.
state-funded. We don't have the babies anymore, but we focus more on pre-K. And so we have two state-funded classrooms. And so we have to, of course, abide by the OSR, which is the Office of School Readiness. We abide by all of their rules, regulations, curriculum, all of that. And so we are currently enrolling for next year for that. And then we have an after-school STEM program. And so we service students grades K through 6, and we have certified teachers who work in that program. And so again, we have some great people in this community who don't mind teaching all day, and then they come and work here in the afternoons. But we make sure that the children have their homework done before they go home. That way mom and dad don't have to worry about fussing with the child to get their homework done. I remember I used to do that with my younger one. He did not want to do homework, straight A's, but we'd have to fight about the homework. And so we make sure they have, our teachers are prepared to teach them the new test standards that are coming out. And so they have a little eds on that. And then we also have a 6-week summer camp. It's called Summer Educational Enrichment Program. And again, we have certified teachers who work for that program. They do hands-on learning, project-based learning, science, math, reading, writing, African American history, character ed, and physical ed. And then we also feed them. So we feed them breakfast, lunch, and I don't want to say dinner, breakfast, lunch, and snack
Right,
in
right.
that program as well. And so we have that. We do HBCU tours during spring break, so we take kids who have never been out of Lee County, Alabama, and we take them around the South, and they get to visit HBCU campuses and stay in hotels and eat great food. And so, yeah, we do. That's just some of what we do.
Girl, look, I'm tired just based upon that alone. And I know your heart's, passion and mission towards educating those students. And there are some great programs. There are some great initiatives that you are doing. And this seems like it's your passion. So, would you say that the things that you do at the CDC is truly your passion?
Oh, absolutely. It allows me to teach the way that I feel the kids need to be taught rather. I love Ron Clark. He is one.
Yes.
I love his approach to education. I'm
So
working on trying
tell
to get
those who
there.
don't know Ron Clark who Ron Clark is, because he's phenomenal.
Oh, he is phenomenal. He was on Oprah years ago. That's actually where I first heard of him.
Yeah.
But he actually started out as a substitute teacher. I believe it was in New York. And he also has a love and a passion for kids who are underprivileged and underserved. And what he saw in the public school system did not sit well with him. And so he ultimately created his own academy, the Ron Clark Academy, and it is geared towards underprivileged and underserved kids. They have tons of sponsors who make sure that these kids have uniforms, and the teachers are paid, and they have top-notch technology, and they get to travel, but everything they do is hands-on.
Wow.
You know, when the kids answer a question, they get to stand up in their chair or on their desk, and they get to answer the question, and they're creative. So the teachers are finding songs that are popular with that age group, and then they create a lesson to fit that song, and so the
Yeah.
kids are really engaged. And
Right.
so engaged learning, hands-on learning, project-based learning, I think is just the best way to learn. And I think the majority of the kids enjoy it because they get to touch and feel and watch things happen. And so our kids this summer are going to they're growing. I got a grant, found out I got a grant the other day, and I'm excited because it was the first one I wrote. And so, but they're going to have an herb garden. So they're going to grow rosemary and cilantro and all these different herbs. And then at the end of the summer, they get to take it home, and they'll also get to learn how to cook with them. So we'll have chefs coming in and teaching them how to make, homemade spaghetti sauce with oregano. You know.
That's amazing because one of the things that when we're working with a segment of students and a segment of population that is underserved is we need to meet them where they are. And meeting them where they are is oftentimes centered around providing their most basic needs and speaking to their true basic self. And when you really start addressing the person from the inside out, and just by simply saying, okay, what music do you listen to? What food do you like to eat? What clothes do you like to wear? What television shows do you like to watch? And you incorporate that into education, that can mean everything to a student, and it keeps them engaged. And
Absolutely.
so we've talked about a lot about your education, background, and about how you've incorporated that into the work that you do. So my next question is this: is that on your journey in your 48 years, have you come to truly know who you are and know what your purpose is in life?
Um, yes and no.
Okay.
I do. I know my purpose is to be an advocate for youth,
Yeah.
to be an advocate for underserved and underprivileged youth in particular, in underprivileged and underserved communities. That is my purpose. I know that. Um, but I'm still learning more about that purpose and how my purpose can help others, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So yeah, it's just to help make the world a better place,
yeah,
one kid at a time.
one kid at a time. And speaking on that, because I think the journey to purpose is a continuing thing. That we always figure out different things about ourselves and learn different things about ourselves through the things that we do. So, is there anything or any one thing that Clarinda still wants to accomplish that she still wants to do at your 48 years and young?
You keep saying 48. I'm proud.
Proud,
But no,
yes.
I'm kidding. Yes, you look fabulous too. But yeah, there's a lot I still want to accomplish. There's a lot I still need to learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to write a book. I want to write a book about my life. I always said I would write a book once I had my happy ending, so to speak. And I feel like in the last couple years, I've gotten my happy ending. So I found my birth parents. I found my biological brother, my biological sisters. I actually have three biological brothers. And so I'm developing relationships with them. I look so much like my biological father's mother. It's ridiculous. We look like twins. I don't know if you saw the picture, but we look
Yes,
like
I've
twins.
seen those. Yeah.
And so, but that just knowing where I came from, just like that puzzle piece that was missing is there. So yes, I still have a lot to learn. I want to write the book. I found the love of my life. You know, who knew it was somebody I've known since I was 8 years old, right? And so, like, I didn't see that one coming, but you know,
Right.
God answered my prayers because
Yeah.
He knew that yeah, the men that I was dating at the time were not cutting it. So,
Right.
yeah, I still have a lot though. I think if you ever just feel like you've accomplished everything, I think that's when you die because there's so much still to learn. There's so much still to do. There's so much more that I can give to the world.
Right.
So, yeah, I have a lot more to do.
And so when you think about your happy ending and living life truly to the essence of our being. Is there any advice that you can give to the Butterfly Nation about living triumphantly?
Oh, yes. Pray.
Number one.
Pray and develop a relationship with God, because I've gone through a lot, and I tell people my whole story, and we'd be here for hours if I did that. But some people are like, how are you still standing? It was
Whoa.
prayer, and it was the fact that even though I rebelled, my parents I still had that foundation.
Yeah.
And so having that relationship with God is very important. And I've also learned, over the years, the 48 years that I've been on this earth, that your vibe attracts your tribe. So if I'm putting off negative energy and I'm always complaining and I'm always woe is me, then I'm going to find myself around those same kind of people, and I'm not going to elevate.
Right.
So I had to kind of check my tribe. Not really. I've always been blessed to have a really good tribe, but I've learned that, certain people just don't need to be in my circle. Like, I can love you from afar, but if you're bringing that negative energy into my life, or, you don't have any goals or any passions or any, thing that you want to do with your life that's meaningful, I just don't need that person in my circle. So I've had to learn to love people from a distance, and I've also had to learn to tell people no and understand that as a complete sentence.
I love it.
I'm still working on that with my dad, because he does not like me to tell him no. But yeah, you have to know your limits, and you have to be okay with telling people no and not explaining why you said no. No, that's it.
Yep.
I saw a TikTok the other day, and the guy was like, no
Yep.
is a complete sentence, and then the other guy said, well, can you explain to me? He said, the answer's still going to be no. So, like, just take my no as a no.
That's right.
So anyway, that in of itself. Yes, and then just, you have to do the work. Nothing is going to be given to you, and so
Right.
do the work. I got up at 3:18 this morning. I was working at 4 a.m. I'm not saying everybody has to do that. You have to find what works best for you, but you have to do the work, and you have to keep learning. You have to become a lifelong learner, because if you don't, then you're going to become very stagnant, and I'm not a complacent person, and so I'm learning. I learned from you a lot. Just, you have no idea. And so, yeah, you just surround yourself with the right people, pray, make sure you have that relationship with God, and be open to learning.
Right. And I probably didn't know that I could say no till I was about 40. And that turned into, that doesn't work for me, but may I offer for your consideration? And then, I give them something that does work for me, and hopefully that it works for them too, because no is a complete sentence, and we have to do that for our own sanity at times. And also, the sum of your top 5 people that you hang around is going to be the way that you experience your life, and the way that you elevate your life. So we need to look at the top 5 people that we hang around the most, and that tells us a lot about ourselves. So many nuggets that you have given us today, Miss Clarinda. So as with every guest with the Beautiful Butterfly Project, I always like to end with what I call our lightning round questions. And there are like 4 questions that I kind of mix up and ask everybody who is a guest. So are you ready?
As ready as I'm going to be.
As ready as you're going to be. What is your favorite? Please don't be nervous. Please don't be nervous. What is your favorite color?
Green.
And tell us why.
It's the color of money, but that's, I don't know. That's really not the reason. I've just always liked green. It honestly brings me some kind of sense of peace or something. It's just, it's a very calming color for me.
Yes. Green
and
is
it
a
is
beautiful
the color
color.
of money.
Yeah, it is the color of money. Money. Yes.
Yes, we like that.
What is your favorite word?
Ooh, that's a good one. My favorite word. I probably use the word amazing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow me on social media and I type amazing, is probably somewhere in my post. Amazing. And yeah, I try to find what's amazing in every situation.
You know what? Amazing is just such a conglomeration of words. And so, you know, it's a good word.
And it's a
It's
simple word,
it,
now
it
we
is
could,
a simple word.
I could be, very,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
college educated and give you a big word, but no,
Right.
amazing it's amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yes. Do you have any regrets in life?
I'm going to say no. I do have some things. Oh, I should have done better. But my husband and I actually had this conversation the other day. Had we not done and gone through the things that we went through, we would not be together. We would not have our children. I would not have this job because I would not have had the jobs previous that would have prepared me for this job. Even, the worst of the worst, they had to happen to help me grow. Growth is not comfortable sometimes. And
Right.
so I feel like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And so, no, I will say, yes, there were some things I could have done better, but I don't regret the way that I did them because they are the reason that I am who I am today.
And if you had one day left here on Earth, what would you spend it doing?
I would spend it on the beach in Turks and Caicos with my family and friends.
The Turks and Caicos.
Yeah.
How did I know that you would say something like that?
I love the beach. What can I
I know. I can see your little feet crossed at the ankles, and you just laying out.
A drink with the umbrella.
A drink
Yes.
with the umbrella in the other hand. Well, Miss Clarinda Jones Turner, it has been a pleasure having you here on the Beautiful Butterfly Project. You have been pure sunshine, and just so happy that we had this opportunity to sit down.
I know. Like, some of the stuff, we've known each other for 27 years at
and-
least.
And I did not
Learning new things every
learning
day.
new things. I had no idea about some of those things, but that's the beautiful thing about life. So could you tell the Beautiful Butterfly Project where we can find you? Do you have any social media handles?
Absolutely. So you can follow me at Greater Peace GPCDC on Facebook, and that is, of course, connected to the nonprofit, or you can find me on Facebook personally under Clarinda Jones Turner. And we have a website. It's www.gpcdc200.org, or you can reach me via email at you can reach me via email at gpcdc2000@gmail.com. That's
Well,
a
it
lot.
certainly
That's what it
has.
is.
I know it's kind of like remembering everything.
GPCDC is in everything. So
Yeah, and that is a mouthful, girl. Well, the Beautiful Butterfly Project thanks you for being here, and I will leave them with your own words as a parting gift. So in the words of Clarinda Jones Turner, failure is not fatal, and it does get better. My heart thanks yours, and I am full of gratitude. Thank you.
thank you. Take care.
You too.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Beautiful Butterfly Project. I hope you found it to be insightful, but most of all, inspiring. If you are interested in being a guest or learning more, please visit our Facebook page at The Beautiful Butterfly Project or email us at thebeautifulbutterflyproject@innovativebutterfly.com. We hope to see you again soon as we take this amazing journey together on The Beautiful Butterfly Project.